Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com. Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
This is Maria Garcia with Vecinos. I'm waiting for my guest, Luis Aragon, and I promise you it'll be worth waiting to listen to Luis because he has so much to share. But while we wait, I'd like to talk a little bit about my book. My book's been out for a little bit over a year and a half. It's called The Neighbor, a Settlement House in Logan Heights. Something I found really interesting was that people in San Diego were not aware that there was a settlement house here so long ago, because it did start in 1914. People assumed that settlement houses were on the East Coast, or at least the Midwest, and they weren't familiar with a place like Neighborhood House that gave so much to the community. Neighborhood House was located at 1809 National Avenue, and the people that went there were from all over the community. This is also in the days when you need to remember the border was practically invisible. People went back and forth. They worked here, they lived there, they lived here, they worked there. It was a back and forth flow. It wasn't like it is today. And so it wasn't unusual to have performers come from Tijuana to perform here, or to have the kids from Neighborhood House perform in Tijuana. One of the things I found especially interesting was how much the people really took pride in the community, how they felt their homes. This is, of course, prior to Freeway 5, were very important. They may have been renters, but they took care of the gardens. They put flowers. They took pride in their community. And in turn, the community was very appreciative of them. Some of the things, and you have to remember, really, what is today Barrio Logan and was then Logan Heights, it's very close to downtown. So many things went on that were involved with people who worked downtown. There was definitely a lot of activity during World War II. During World War II, men came here from different places, from the Philippines, from Texas, New Mexico. And one of the things that happened was they flowed into Logan Heights because of the similarities. There was the similarity of language, many of the foods, the Catholic religion. So it became a natural place for them to go attend dances, flirt with the girls, talk about how much they miss home. There was also that feeling from the community that, poor guys, they're not home. They should have a good home-cooked meal. So there was a lot of interaction with the communities from other places. And interesting, so some of the women thought they found, or rather their mothers said, oh no, I don't want her dating somebody from Texas. The next thing I know, she'll move to Texas with this person. It was okay if they were planning to stay here, but not okay if they were going to take their daughters and go to Texas and live. Another similarity was the way the boys worked earning extra money. They really, the boys in Texas, as Jesse Ramirez explained to me, they did a lot of shining of shoes, a lot of working to get a little extra money for the family. Here in San Diego, it was a business to shine shoes for the servicemen. They would do all this work, and they would also take flowers from the gardens of their family and friends and sell them to the servicemen so they could give them to the girls downtown. Many of you know some of the people that came from Logan Heights. I would like to talk just for a minute about Laura Rodriguez. Everybody knows Laura, and yet people do not know Laura. Laura is very unique in that she spoke her mind. At a very young age, she was responsible for the family. Her father was blind or became blind, and so part of her responsibility was to walk him downtown to sell newspapers. And she would walk him downtown, walk herself to Memorial, at the end of the day, go back and pick him up. When Laura's father died, she went to live with the Marston family. Now, everybody knows that the Marston family in San Diego meant money, it meant leadership, civic work. Mr. George Marston had a department store downtown where everybody and anybody who had just a little bit of money went and spent it there. And Laura and her sister both moved in with the Marstons. Laura chose to get married at a very young age, even though they begged her not to, and that they would see that she went to college and all of this. And she later told me how much she regretted not continuing her education, because if you knew Laura, you knew she was a very bright young woman. Laura took many causes, and she really did not become an activist till she was older. As a young woman, she was expected to stay home and raise a family, take care of her children. Her mother-in-law even walked the kids to school because Mr. Rodriguez was worried that the men would look at Laura. So she would walk her kids the mother-in-law would walk the kids to school. And as she grew older, and maybe it was out of the fact that she had been exposed to civic involvement, Laura became very involved in that community there. She loved that community. And one of the reasons she loved Neighborhood House, or what was to become the clinic, is because Laura had gone to the clinic that was located at Neighborhood House. That clinic was unique. One of the things that I know the lawyers right now are having nightmares when they hear it, they did operations on the kitchen table. Not major operations, but they would take your tonsils out. A little broken arm, they could fix that there. So it was really a hospital at times. One of the things that they had hoped to do was to have girls take what would today probably be an LVN class. In those days, they were calling it a nursing class. And the girls learned basic first aid, health issues. However, some of the girls had problems when their mother saw the book that was involved with this class. And, of course, there was nude pictures or body structure of the male's body. And their mothers felt this was totally inappropriate for the young girls to attend this class. And so they asked them to leave. And they left the class. Another thing that is probably not too well known about Laura is her stand on child pornography. She was very much against child pornography. And so she would often take very, very strong stands, including one stand which I personally remember her getting very angry at one of the bookstores downtown and walking in and throwing all their magazines around and calling them perverts and telling them everything else in the world, and the gentleman threatening to sue her. Ladies and gentlemen, guess what just happened? Our guest just arrived, and so I want to welcome Luis Aragon. Luis is a retired assistant district attorney, community activist, and the last year or so, a composer. I wanted to discuss the diversity in our community, and Luis is a perfect example of diversity, not only in our community, but within himself. Luis, welcome, and I'd like to start with Luis as a little boy.
First of all, Maria, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I was born in San Bernardino, and the youngest of 9, 7 men, 2 women. And my family moved to El Centro when I was an infant, and I was there up to 3rd grade.
Why did they move to El Centro?
My father was working at Plaster City.
I know where that is.
Oh, yes. And I never ceased to marvel at, here he was in the Imperial Valley, which is, on a good day in the summer, 115, 120 degrees. And my dearly departed father worked at Plaster City in the smelter. It was like heat upon heat. But anyway, there was a job opportunity for him. So that's why we moved to El Centro. And then a few years after that, we moved to Calexico, where I was there from 4th grade to graduation from high school.
So, did you know as a young man what you wanted to do?
No, but I knew that whatever manifestation it was going to be educationally oriented. My family, it was a given that we were going to finish school, go to college, and hopefully get a professional degree after that.
So you went to Calexico High School. What kind of activities were you involved in there?
Just about everything. I was a nerd, I guess. So I was involved in student politics. I was involved in the band. I became president of the student body. I was assistant editor of the newspaper of the annual. Very, very involved, and as I say, because I was not athletically inclined, which was where the big men on campus were, I was able to find a niche that provided me a lot of interaction with my classmates.
Did you work in high school?
Not really. I would, on weekends, the Imperial Valley, of course, is the fruit and vegetable garden for basically the state, if not beyond. So when the season was over, we'd drive to the watermelon and cantaloupe fields, and we'd pick up the culls. And I'd spend a good part of the spare time with my little cart going around selling wonderful watermelons, by the way, for 10 cents or whatever people wanted to give me. So I guess you can call that working, but it was fun.
Okay, we're going to need to commercial, but we will pick up this conversation when we get back. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
The richness of your life is reflected in the shimmering elegance found at Diolune Design. One-of-a-kind jewelry and pieces from Cynthia Dillon in silver and gold help to express your unique personality. The flowing designs of her creations will empower the way you move throughout your day. Join us online at DIOLUNdesigns.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on VinVillage Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What?, Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome to Vecinos. My guest today is Luis Aragon. Luis is a retired DA, but since his retirement, I think he's split himself in 50 different pieces in different directions. I would like to talk a little bit more. When we went to commercial, you were graduating from Calexico High. How did you decide, or where did you decide about college?
Well, my mother was a Renaissance woman, notwithstanding the fact that she did not have a lot of educational opportunities. She read, she was well aware of the world far beyond the Imperial Valley. And she had heard about schools like Yale, Harvard, Stanford, and all these schools. And so when it was time, she said, Luis, you're going to, you should apply to back east, to the Ivy League. So I remember meeting with my high school counselor, and he said, so where do you want to apply? I said, Yale, Harvard, Stanford, Cornell, Berkeley, and he looked at me wide-eyed. And so I applied, and I was fortunate to...
Did he make any comments?
He shuddered a little bit. He didn't really say anything. But those were the times and those are the days. And probably if I had been sitting in his desk, I would have scratched my head also. There is a certain bliss to ignorance and not really knowing the challenges that you face. You just go forward. And so I was fortunate to get into a good school.
Where did you go?
Yale.
And what happened at Yale? What did you do at Yale?
I was a fairly good student, but Yale was obviously a cultural and in every way a sea change for me. I was among students who had traveled all over the world during their summers. The first dinner, I remember sitting at a long table and everybody talking about their ski trips and in the Alps. And the only country I had been in was Mexico, which was a 10-minute walk across the border from Calexico. So it was a challenge. I didn't know any better, so I wasn't intimidated. So
okay.
But that was my introduction to political activism. My mentor, Joaquin Avila, who passed away sadly a few months ago, Joaquin was a senior when I was a freshman, and Joaquin was largely responsible for me being there. In my class, there were 4 Chicanos, Latinos, you would say today, and that was because Joaquin had been arguing for admission. So when I got there, I got to meet him and grew to respect him so much. Joaquin went on to Harvard Law School and could have commanded any salary at the biggest law firms in the world. Instead, he devoted himself to voter enfranchisement. And Joaquin, in my opinion, will go down as one of the icons of liberation for us. He sued many districts in Texas, the Central Valley, the places that were carving up districts to prevent Latino representation. So that was the politicization that I experienced, and it was a very, of course, the times were very exciting. It was the anti-war movement. It was really, actually, as I look back, a beautiful time in America.
I agree. I really do agree, because there was so much going on, not like our sad times. So you get through college. How do you decide where you're going to work, or what you're going to do, or law school, or?
I kind of knew law school was going to be where I would end up. You mentioned that I write music. I wrote my first song when I was 9 years old, and I thought I would actually be a composer in the music business. So that was always something I thought about doing. And in fact, when I left college, I spent a year in Los Angeles working with one of my brothers, who is also a songwriter. And we, knocked on all the doors and came close. You know, there were some opportunities that never materialized, but it was an exciting year. But it convinced me that I needed to have a career that was a little more reliable, and so that's when I decided to go to law school.
Your law school experience, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Went to Georgetown, and it was a great experience. Georgetown has, I think to this day, the best internship program, and I was lucky to be the student assistant to the professor who ran all the internships, so I got to meet a lot of influential people and talk about politics, and so that was, and of course living in Washington, D.C. And at the time, one of my brothers was special assistant to President Carter, so we actually shared an apartment, and I got to hear the stories when he'd come home 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and he'd tell me what was going on in the world of politics, and so that was an exciting time.
That was an education in itself.
Sure.
That was really a second education.
Sure.
So how did you end up in San Diego?
Well, I had an opportunity with another brother who was in business in San Diego, and he had a number of carpet stores, and as he was aware that I had had some student debt, to put it lightly. Although as I look back now, the tuition that I paid versus the tuition that my children paid was nothing but notwithstanding. So I moved to San Diego and ran a carpet store for a couple of years and was able to pay off my student debt, buy my first house, and got married to my first wife, and that was a good experience.
Good. So how did you end up in the DA's office?
I clerked. I knew I didn't want to be in civil practice because I didn't want to fight about money. I don't really have a head for business, and so then I looked at obviously at criminal law, and I clerked for the public defender, and I clerked for the DA's office and the city attorney, and then I applied to all three. And the first call I got was from the DA. It was on a Monday. I remember I was in Guadalajara, and I immediately accepted because I needed a job. The next day I got a call from the public defender, but of course fate had already put me at the DA's office, so that's how I ended up there.
What was your job at the DA's office? Because I know that you authored or co-authored an anti-hate crime law. Tell us about that law and what it did for the community. Well, when you are with the DA, you do everything, from petty theft to homicide. And I was in the what we call the Superior Court Division that handled all the major crimes. And then I had read about a new statute that criminalized hate violence. I think it was 1985. And I immediately was interested in that, and I went to the DA and I said, may I have these cases? He said, sure. No one else really had a lot of interest in them. I remember some of my colleagues saying, Luis, what's the difference? If a guy gets hit, does he really care if it was hate motivated? And of course you do. But anyway, so I started prosecuting those cases, and I realized that the statute that was on the books added no time. So what's the point? I mean, you're either going to criminalize it or not. So I worked with another DA, and we wrote legislation that was supported by the DA's office in San Diego. We went to Sacramento. We got legislative support. I testified before the various committees, and the statute passed, and it basically added 1 to 2 years of incarceration if the crime is motivated in substantial part because of hate, the color of the skin, the religious, the gender, etc. So Is there any other experiences in the DA's office before we go to your community involvement that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I did a number of things with elder abuse. I helped start the first elder abuse division in the DA's office that is now nationally recognized. I guess I come away from that experience encouraging Latinos and others to consider the DA's office, because the DA's office, for better or for worse, establishes the criminal justice policies for their community. We, of course, need public defenders, but and public defenders would tell you this. They react to whatever the DA does. So the DA really drives the criminal justice agenda. So we need to have people in that office that have diverse views, come from diverse communities, to make sure that they reflect the charging, the disposition of crimes in our community.
You were president of La Raza Lawyers?
Yes.
What is that organization?
It's a wonderful organization that was started maybe 25, 30 years ago. And it's an advocacy group. It's also a group where we come together and we help each other. It's an excellent network, but we also provide scholarships for students who are starting law school.
We're going to commercial, but we will pick this conversation up when we get back.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The WorldLink program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Attention business owners. If you feel like your business owns you and want to grow your company and get your life back, then get the Scale Toolkit at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. Created by Wall Street Journal bestselling author David Finkel and Priceline.com co-founder Jeff Hoffman, this free collection of 36 videos and PDF tools will help you build a business, not a job. Go to scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com today and learn how to work less by getting your business to produce more.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
If you heard that sound, you probably are eligible for insurance from Navy Mutual, insuring the men and women of the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Here's what one policyholder, retired Navy Commander Thomas Dade, had to say.
Navy Mutual is the best insurance decision I ever made. I wish you had a savings plan available that earned the rates my Navy Mutual insurance has been earning.
Navy Mutual Aid Association, started by military members in 1879, serves active, reserve, and retired military today. Navy Mutual honors our military by providing them affordable life insurance with the features they need without fine print, sales fees, or military service restrictions. Value, integrity, trust, and stability are the cornerstones on which our commitment to you and your loved ones are built. Call Navy Mutual at 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org for your personal life insurance plan consultation. 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. My guest today is Luis Aragon, retired DA. But I want to talk a little bit more because most of us do not think about a DA being involved in a variety of community activities. Yes, they're involved in community activities, but sometimes they're more in the area of law and order and not in some of the area that Luis has decided. So, Luis, you're working in the DA's office. Tell us what, besides La Raza Lawyers, some of your involvement, and then go to your present-day involvement, which I think our listeners will find very interesting.
Thank you. Well, when I was prosecuting hate crimes, I realized that it would require a community effort. So I organized a group with Anti-Defamation League, the Muslim community, the African American community, of course, the Latino community, the Tom Homan Society, and we met quarterly, and we would talk about what was going on with respect to racial incidents. And as a result, I started speaking to many high schools and colleges and community groups. I think at one point, when I had to put together a resume, I logged over 200 such speaking engagements. And it was wonderful. Well, it was unfortunate because most of those were related to an incident. But it brought me in close contact with the community, and particularly the diversity community. And I began to see firsthand some of the issues facing those communities in San Diego. And I think it's difficult to be aware of those issues and not become involved. So I credit that to sparking and maintaining my interest in doing whatever I could to help bridge some of those issues.
What is your community involvement now?
Well, you alluded to it. I'm busier now than when I worked. I sometimes, yeah. I'm involved in two groups, Border Angels and Teatro Mascara Magica, and both of those are very near and dear to my heart and to my interest. Border Angels, I think anyone who knows anything about it knows that how critically important the work is that they do. I don't think there are a lot of organizations that can say that but for them, there are people alive today who would not be alive. Far beyond that, the advocacy that Enrique Morones provides nationally, internationally, to constantly remind us of the injustice that faces people that are in search of a better life. It's a beautiful organization that's founded on love and Enrique's philosophy, which is the power of one. Mm-hmm. So, and Teatro Mascara, of course, Bill Virtus, it's over 30 years old. I have been a long-time fan of his, and became very closely associated with him when he produced and directed a musical that my brother and I wrote called Elena. And it was a great experience. And then at some point, Bill asked me to become more involved. And I have been for the last 4 years, very involved in the organization. And we're doing some very exciting things.
With Border Angels, there was the Board of Supervisors had an important vote yesterday. Would you like to talk about it? What happened?
apparently it's 3-1 to support the lawsuit, Trump's lawsuit. And as a resident of San Diego County, I'm embarrassed that we are embracing hatred and we are embracing ignorance. This has never been about a country's ability to maintain borders and immigration policy. Of course, we, like every country on the planet, we have a right to determine who's coming and who's not. But the fashion in which we are regulating our immigration is un-American. It's heartless. And I attribute it directly to this administration. There are reams and reams of hate speech that the president has delivered. And again, I spent 5 years prosecuting hate crimes, and I learned that the predicate to hate violence is hate speech. Violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is nurtured. It is harvested by the words of hate. And when you call a country of rapists, and I mean, we're all familiar with the hate words, touchstones, the soft embrace of the white nationalists that this president has given. So I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed, and we're going to see if we can do something about it, because it does not reflect what San Diego is. San Diego is not a place that rejects people and embraces hatred.
And I think we saw we've seen for the last week from the Board or 2 weeks from the Board of Supervisors, a lot of hate speech. We really have. They can call it political speeches or whatever they want, but it's hate speech. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or our lack of representation on the Board of Supervisors?
Well, to my knowledge, there has never been a Latino on the Board of Supervisors, which in itself is a monument to. It's a disgraceful statement. San Diego, when I've now lived here over 35 years, and when I first moved here, I considered San Diego kind of politically a backwater. But I saw progress. I saw the efforts of Latinos and African Americans, Asian Americans, gays, and others challenging the status quo and changing it for the better. And I wonder if we're not now backtracking. It reflects, I think, an issue that we've had, San Diego in denial of the fact that we are a stone's throw away from Mexico. This is something we should be proud of. And instead we count it as a negative.
Yeah, it becomes a detriment here.
Yes.
I in my research for the writing I do, I interviewed people when San Diego had one little station there, and they walked back and forth across the border. They drove back and forth. People came here to lunch, went over there to lunch. It was not like it is now, this militarized zone. Nothing happened. Or maybe people are looking and saying, well, yeah, all these Mexicans ended up here or something like that. But it did not bring crime or rapist or any of these things to our city.
I find it ironic that the president is inviting Putin to dinner at the White House while sending troops to the border against Mexico. This is someone who's unclear of the world, where we invite an antagonist, a longtime antagonist, and it surprises me that Republicans who have been so much against, rightfully so, the incursion of Russia in foreign affairs, allow this president to look the other way and to demonize Mexico. This is what countries do when they are at war. When we were at war with Japan and Germany, we've seen the horrible caricatures. You dehumanize. It's easier to kill your opponent when they're less than human. and he's demonizing Mexico.
Mexico didn't take care of all his financial needs as Russia did.
Well, we'll see what the special counsel comes up with, but there's a lot to wonder about.
I know we're all waiting to see. Actually, we're waiting for the indictment. Let's be honest, so we can have a party. And it's a very sad thing to say that that's what we're waiting for in this country. We should all be working together to make it better.
Of course.
And not tearing it apart. Anything else you'd like to tell us about your district attorney life, your life as a lawmaker, before we go into your other side?
No, and I appreciate your letting me talk about it. I will say that the office that I left was profoundly different from the office I entered.
Okay.
And that's good news. The diversity that is in today's DA's office, in terms of gender, ethnicity, etc., is, and I can tell you because I was there. I remember my first sexual assault case. The supervisor looking at me and saying, "Oh, don't worry, Luis. It's an illegal." But that was then. Now I'm proud to say there is a totally different environment there, and it's very hospitable to diversity.
That's good to hear. And just a quick question: was the illegal the victim?
Victim.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just needed to be filled in because that does make a difference. Any victim of
right.
a sex crime
Of
should
course.
not. We shouldn't be judging by if they're legal here or not.
Of course.
We will be back in a minute. We're on WS Radio, .com, the worldwide leader in internet talk shows.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
You've heard me talking about Progressive Medical Center. They have helped me feel my best. And Dr. Gully, tell us a little bit about integrative medicine. Why is that such a big deal at Progressive Medical Center, and how can that make me feel better?
Integrative medicine is just good medicine. It's combining the best of traditional medicine, nutritional medicine, natural medicine, and really helping the patient get to the root cause so they can take control of their health and really make an impact to improve not only their energy, their vitality, and just their overall outlook on their health and their life.
I procrastinated for a long time before I finally made an appointment. So why should someone not delay and go ahead and get set up and come see you guys?
Any journey begins with that first step, and that first step means making a decision to recognize that there's something wrong with you. Whether you have fatigue, inappropriate weight gain, not sleeping well, not concentrating, all of these issues, you can get to the root cause.
So many of us here at The Fish have gotten help from Progressive Medical Center. So why don't you find out more from them today? Go to progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life, live it well.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Attention business owners. Does it feel like your business owns you? See if you qualify for a free 90-minute business coaching session to to help you build a business, not a job. During this free 90-minute strategic consultation, one of our senior coaches will help you map out the best way to grow your company and get your life back. To learn more, go to MauiMasterminds.com/scale now. That's MauiMasterminds.com/scale now.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. Again, my guest today is Luis Aragon, and when we went to commercial, we were talking about his community involvement. But Luis wears many coats or many hats, whichever way you want to put it, and his new life has brought new interests. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you're doing in your retired life.
Well, I've spoken about Border Angels. I'd like to talk about Teatro Mascara Magica. Again, 30 years old. I think one of the oldest cultural grassroots theater company anywhere. And it is the brainchild and continues to be shepherded by Bill Virchis, its artistic director. We do about 3 or 4 productions a year. Our biggest production is the Pastorela that we perform. I think this year will be our 30th presentation of La Pastorela.
Do you know where it was first performed in San Diego?
The Old Globe? No. Where?
At Neighborhood House.
Oh.
In the 30s. In the 1930s, with community people playing the role. And the first night, there was 500 people there, so they had to move it outside.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's how desperate San Diego was for something that had to do, that they could relate to. Go ahead.
No, thank you for sharing. It may ruin Bill's day, but...
No, Bill always says, en el año del caldo.
Yeah. I love Bill's story. You know, he learned a lot of his English doing Shakespeare at the Old Globe. Yeah. His life is one of theater, and he's inspired generations of Latino actors, and not just actors and actresses, but sound people, lighting people. He's started so many careers in theater. And what we try to do, apropos to what you just said, bring theater to a community that has been ignored, frankly, by traditional or mainstream theater. The rep, San Diego rep, has been a leader in providing diverse theater, so we compliment them. But beyond that, so Teatro does plays that speak to issues confronting the community. One of play that we did when we were the theater of residents at the La Jolla Playhouse was Detained in the Desert.
I remember that.
Yes, I'm so proud of that production. And Josefina Lopez, of course, the author, and a longtime supporter of Teatro Mascara. So we try to voice those issues in a theatrical context. And we have been searching for a home because, and again, it's shameful, I think, that the oldest and most prestigious Latino theater company in San Diego doesn't have a home. I joke to Bill that Pastorela is maybe our story.
Knocking on doors.
Knocking on doors, looking for a place to lay our heads. And but it, and I don't want to be premature in this announcement, but we have been in discussions with Casa Familiar and in San Isidro, and keeping our fingers crossed, but we're having some very exciting discussions with them about actually having a permanent venue, which would allow us to have seasons that we could sell subscriptions to and be a regular theater company. We are, of course, but except that we don't have a permanent home, a permanent address. So I think this year is going to be just a wonderful year for us, and we're working on some interesting plays that we'll be announcing soon.
You're a composer. Now that, I look at you, I've seen you at a variety of events, and I would never have thought of you as a composer. How did that happen?
Well, if you hear my music, you might
No,
not
I
think
heard
of me as a...
I now heard your music, and I can say I do consider you a composer.
Thank you. Well, as I say, I wrote my first song when I was 9, and
do you remember any of the words?
It was just the music.
Okay.
But to this day, it's my children's favorite.
How cute! That's very nice.
Yeah, and again, I attribute my mother, who we didn't have a lot of Mexican music, and we had, the Panchos and Agustin Lara's music, but we were raised on Broadway tunes. And every Saturday night, the Metropolitan was on radio, and we were there sitting in front of the radio listening to Maria Callas, and so we grew up with symphonies, operas, and show tunes, Broadway. So that's very much part of my DNA in terms of music. So I've written all my life and found music really comforting. Some of the cases that I handled at the DA's office were very disturbing. And so I would come home and sit at the piano and kind of relax, and typically have whoever was my infant at the time on my lap, and it was a way for me to kind of get back to who I was. And so music is vital to me, and I've written countless numbers of songs and 3 musicals, and am now working on a 4th musical.
One of your musicals, and I think it was Elena, wasn't it done by Danny Valdez?
Yes.
Let's talk a little. I mean, Danny Valdez, for those of you that are not familiar, when it comes to teatro in the Mexican community and the Chicano community, is very well known. You didn't just start at the bottom; you started at the top.
Well, true enough. And of course, Danny, we all know Teatro Campesino. He and his brother Luis basically invented Latino theater. And Danny is this musical genius. He sings beautifully. He plays beautifully. Recently saw for the umpteenth time Zoot Suit, the movie. And I was reminded of Danny as a young actor. And then I wrote him and I joked. I said, wow, you were kind of, in pretty good shape then. And he still is for, given. But that was wonderful. I remember my brother and I sitting in Bill Virtus's office, and the main male lead was a father, Mr. Gonzalez, Elena's father. And Bill said, what if we get Danny Valdez? My brother and I, our eyes wide open, said, you know Danny Valdez? And duh, Bill knows everybody.
Yes, he does.
Meets, occasionally with God, I think. But so Danny read the play and loved it and came and did it. And that was a high point for me. He was spectacular.
What are you working on now? What, if you could have anything you wanted this year for the theater, what would your wish be besides a home?
For Teatro Mascara?
Yeah.
A budget.
Okay, fair enough.
We and again, I don't know how Bill has done it. We operate on basically flat line. Our annual budget is probably 2 costumes at the Globe. So I would love to see an endowment for the theater. And my hope is to someday have a theater, and it would be the William Virtus Theater for the Performing Arts.
How beautiful is that? We are coming to an end. We have less than 10 seconds. Is there one quick comment you'd like to make?
Just to thank you, and I hope our listeners know how much you have done for this community, and how honored I am even to be with you. So thank you.
You're welcome, but our goal is to bring out our history, You're listening to WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet talk show. Thank you so much. Next week, we'll be talking about Balboa Park and the museums.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Kenja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kenja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KenjaDixon.com. On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. If you've ever wanted to grow your business but held yourself back from fear that it would take over your life, then we urge you to get your copy of Scale today. It'll give you a proven roadmap for rapidly growing your business while also gaining more personal freedom. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Scale is for every entrepreneur who ever wondered if they really own their business or if their business owns them. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. That's scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.
Controversy and conversation to upset the status quo. A no-holds-barred exploration and obliteration of the limits of possibility. Join me, Steve Olsher, and my rambunctious crew on Reinvention Radio, where each week we scour the planet to bring you the world's foremost social, business, political, technology, and scientific disruptors who challenge the accepted and forge daring, cutting-edge paths. That's Reinvention Radio, where normal comes to die and mediocrity meets its final demise.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.